Hello and welcome back to my OOTP 20 series here with the Toronto Blue Jays. So we are 27 and 32, not really where we want to be, especially because in terms of our batting WAR, we are 5th in the American League, and in terms of pitching WAR, we're 6th in the American League. So even though we're really dominating offensively and with the pitching end, things just aren't coming together. And if you look at our Pythagorean record, a little bit of it is luck. You can see that we should be about 29 and 30, but that doesn't really explain a lot of it. I think really the culprit could be just the defense. I mean, our defense has been basically dead last in baseball for, 3 or 4 straight years. And even though we win, 90 games the last 2 years, which is not bad, I think talent-wise we're really better than a 90-win team. So we're going to have to keep that in mind. I don't know exactly what we can do about it necessarily, because when I look at the players we have, I don't want to get rid of them, but there's no question that they are bad defensively. Anyway, with that said, we've also got some bad news on the injury front. You can see Travis Hosterman, who might be someone that would maybe be in the rotation. He's out for a while, partially torn labrum. Then there's Elvis Luciano. He's, again, another torn labrum. He's going to be out for the entire year. I think he's been out for the entire year. Andrew Heaney, recurring back spasms, fantastic. Sean Reed-Foley, he's got a strained hamstring. And then Bo Bichette as well, a fractured foot, so he is going to be out for a month. In terms of who is healthy right now, well, Jordan Groshans is doing quite well. You can see he is on pace for a 6-win season. He had a 2.4-win season last year as well, so he seems to be somewhat of a real deal. I've got him playing shortstop right now, just because he is better than Bo Bichette. You can see only a negative 2.1 zone rating so far. Whereas Bichette, I gotta show you these numbers from last year. I think I've already brought this up, but yeah, I mean, he was negative 19.5 zone rating last year, negative 10 the year before that. So I just don't think that's really acceptable. Anyway, Guerrero Jr., hitting very well. I've got him over at first base just because I think that's where our biggest need is right now. Yu is still playing very well. I mean, he's not, the 7-win player he was last year, but I don't think I've ever really expected that from him. I kind of expect him to be a 3 to 4 win player, and that's what he's kind of on pace for at least this season. Then you've got Reese McGuire, steady as always. Justin Turner has definitely been a disappointment. This is someone who we got over the offseason in a trade. And I guess defensively he's doing pretty well because he's on pace for a 2.2 WAR season. But he's been quite bad offensively, and I do expect a little bit more from him, especially with those ratings. I mean, they're pretty good ratings. Then in the outfield, there is Lazaro. He seems to be coming into his own. He's on pace for a 2.2 WAR season, hitting pretty well. I don't know how much of this is BABIP, but I mean, he is fast, so you would kind of expect he'd be able to get on base. Anyway, I'll certainly take the production while I can get it. Zimmerman, just kind of another blah year, I mean, he's on pace for 27 home runs and 362 at-bats, which is pretty good, but he's just really not finding a way to get on base, which is going to be a problem. I don't know, given that his salary is still pretty low, I think he's going to stay on the team, but when he starts hitting arbitration, like really hitting arbitration and demanding $4 million, $5 million, I don't know that I'm really going to keep him. And then Cavan Biggio is another guy to keep an eye on because his first year as a Blue Jay, he was a 3.8 win player. Last year took a step back, but still very valuable, and this year it's another step back, and his ratings even seem to have taken a step back, so he's still finding ways to get on base, but that's a lot of strikeouts. And again, keep in mind, the defense, not really there for Biggio. I don't think it's really there defensively in the infield either. Yeah, only a 45 range. So he's definitely a utility guy, but I don't know how much of a starter he's going to be unless the bat can pick up. And same story for Kevin Smith, who's now making $6 million a year through arbitration. I don't know if I'm really going to be keeping him if he can't hit. I mean, right now he's slugging like 287, so he'll be getting some more at-bats now that Bichette is injured, so maybe he can turn it around, but we're going to have to just keep that in mind. If we take a look at the pitching staff, though, so Chris Sale still doing really well at the age of 34, really dominating. That strikeout rate a little bit lower than it was last year, that walk rate also creeping up, but keep in mind, this guy's 34 years old. He's under contract next season, and we've got a team option for the year after if we want to bring him back. But, for a 34-year-old pitcher, got to be very happy with the numbers that he is putting up. Kyle Hendricks, this is something I want to go into a little bit. So his strikeout rates have definitely fallen, and that's a bummer. And the other thing is, I think I've done a little bit more research in terms of how to evaluate pitchers, and I don't think in hindsight that I should have done this trade. And basically my thought process in giving away Reyes to the Cubs is that, well, he's going to be a free agent next year, but also his walk rates are just very high, and I didn't know as a starting pitcher, can you really be successful if you're walking like 4 or 5 guys per 9 innings, which is what he's doing. And what I kind of found is that it's not necessarily enough to just look at a strikeout to walk ratio. You should really just take into account the actual strikeout number and the walk number, because strikeouts are just really valuable, and Reyes is just striking out so many people. 11 to 12 per 9 innings. I mean, that's a lot of strikeouts, even though he's walking so many guys. And it's kind of like, that Nolan Ryan type of deal where Ryan walked like 5 or 6 guys per 9 innings for a lot of his career and was still very successful. And I think that could, kind of be the case here with Reyes. So anyway, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I'm definitely going to keep him in mind, possibly about re-signing him. But anyway, Kyle Hendricks himself has been a bit of a disaster. Hopefully he can turn it around, but he's really going to have to strike out more people, even though he is a ground ball pitcher. And then Luzardo, aside from his good stats, I've got some exciting news. I have offered a contract to him, 6 years and $62 million. That would take him through his age 31 or 32 season. And I think that's definitely worth it because he is a really, really good pitcher. Maybe not quite an ace, but definitely a great number 2 guy and some really good strikeout to walk ratio numbers this year. And then just because of all the pitching injuries, I've just got some stopgaps here in the bottom part of the rotation. Luis M. Castillo, who I believe was on the team in my Royals series. But anyway, he's been kind of okay for the Cubs in the past couple years. Of course, he comes to our team and just has not really had great numbers. But anyway, hopefully he can turn it around. And then Casey Mize in the back of the rotation. Even though his ERA is 7.2, I am liking a lot of what I'm seeing. You can see that he's striking out 8 guys per 9 innings, only walking 2 guys per 9 innings. And even though he's giving up a ton of home runs, which is definitely a little bit concerning because of his low movement rating, I'd say out of these 3 numbers, being the walks, the strikeouts, and the home runs, it's really the home runs that are kind of the most variable. So I'm hoping that number comes down. And then in the bullpen, Edwin Diaz has been, as promised, on pace for a 3.8 WAR season, kind of as an opener and as a stopper. Then you can see the rest of our bullpen kind of up and down a little bit. So the other thing is I think my reign as a manager and general manager is going to come to an end. I'm going to be hiring Ron Renicky, and the reason for that is pretty simple. I just don't think we've been very good, and it's a lot of work to be kind of setting up all the lineups. So I think I'm just going to let a actual computer manager kind of take care of that. I did also just call up Gavin Dugas. He was a 2nd-round pick back in 2021, and he's going to be kind of taking over at second base a little bit, maybe in a backup role, maybe in a starting role as Bo Bichette is injured. With that said, it is the first-year player draft, so let's take a look at who we've got here. I actually kind of forgot who my scout is. Yeah, Manuel Torres. So one thing to keep in mind is he is favorability. So that is something that could especially affect people who are like high school pitchers. Their ability's not really going to be there. There's a lot of potential and a lot of tools maybe. So if we do see a high school pitcher that's maybe kind of on the bubble, I think it's someone who we maybe should take because our scout would probably be undervaluing him. So we have the 25th pick here in the draft. Right away, I think this Jared Labe is interesting, but the OSA rating's not really a fan of him. That's not obviously a horrible thing, but I always like to see the OSA ratings be high as well. It does have a good work ethic, which is nice to see, and he is a very easy signing. So maybe we could save some money in that first pick. There's Joe Clement, but he is an impossible signing. Chris Mercer, maybe another guy. And as we take a look at the starters here, this Bob Dyson looks pretty good. Ground ball pitcher, low intelligence, which is a little bit concerning, but like a lot of these potential ratings, that changeup may not develop, but he's still otherwise got 3+ pitches. Of course, that control also might not develop. That's a very low control rating. Yeah, Ed Deaton, another guy, unfortunately another impossible signing, but he looks pretty good as well. Always got to worry about that changeup and control developing. So I got to say, because the 2 pitchers that I really like are kind of impossible signings, I think for the first round, it makes sense to get this guy who is very easy to sign in Jared Labe, because we might actually be able to get one of those pitchers maybe in a later round. Let's see who our scouting director recommends, and he does recommend Jared, so let's take him in the first round. So here in the second round, let's see who is still available. I do see that Bob Dyson is still available, which is very exciting. I think I'm going to grab Dyson. Now here in the third round, I can see that Ed Deaton is also available. I think we might really be pushing our luck if we try to get 2 starters in the same draft who are impossible signings. I really like a lot of his personality ratings, though, and a lot of what's coming together. So anyway, let's take a look at the hitters, just see if there's anyone there we might want to pick up. Our scout recommends this catcher, which I really do not agree with. Yeah, I'm not necessarily overwhelmed by anyone who I'm seeing, so I'm going to try to get this other starter, to be honest, and I don't know that I'll really be able to sign both, but I think it's worth taking a flyer on, and we're just going to have to be very understanding that we're going to have to get a lot of cheap players in the rest of the draft. But anyway, here in the 4th round, this Joe Clement is still available. He's an impossible signing, so I really don't think we can grab him. This Sean Basteau looks interesting as a catcher, but, unfortunately, I just don't think the defense is really going to be there. Yeah, I'm not really seeing a whole lot right now. And anyone who I am seeing is an impossible signing, so I think I'm going to go with Sean Basteau. I mean, he's intriguing. Obviously, I don't know that those defensive numbers are really going to come around, but I don't really see anybody else who I would really want to take a flyer on. And he is an easy signing, so maybe that'll help sign the other 2 pitchers that we took who are impossible signings. I like the looks of this guy, but he is fragile. I think I'm going to go with him. I don't see anyone else, so let's pick him up here in the 5th round. And in the 6th round, I think I'm going to go with this first baseman. And I think I'm going to just sim ahead from here. I am going to cut back ends, because if Joe Clement stays on the board for maybe another 2 rounds or so, I think I'm just going to pick him up. Maybe we can't sign, one of the impossible pitchers, and I grab Clement and one of the impossible pitchers. We'll just have to see how it all works out, but anyway, I'm just going to sim ahead from here. And just quickly, I just wanted to say, unfortunately, Jake Mangum is out for the season with a ruptured Achilles tendon, and he did play a little bit in the majors this year, was not very good. I still have some decent hopes for him. I mean, his ratings are quite good, but unfortunately, he is out for the year. Okay, so in the end, we were able to sign Ed Deaton, who was our 3rd round pick. I mean, he looks pretty solid. If he can really turn out to be anything like this, that would be definitely worth it. But obviously, he's very young, so we'll just have to see kind of how things shake out. As I was trying to negotiate with other people, Bob Dyson offered him a pretty good chunk of change, something like $7.5 million, but he declined, unfortunately. And same with Joe Clement. I think I offered him like $7.5 million, and he declined, so again, with these impossible signings, it can be really difficult to try to get someone to sign, but I am very happy that we were able to get Ed Deaton. And Casey Mize is out with a torn labrum, so man, we have just had the injury bug this year. And here on June 18th, we have another injury. Jordan Groshans has a fractured ulna. I don't know what that is. He will be out for 4 weeks. That's got to be like a foot bone or something. Arm. Wow, okay. Jeez. Well, anyway, he is out, so that's another guy on the injured list. My goodness. Guess we're going to call up Frechette. I mean, we don't really have any other infielders to call up necessarily, but I think we've still got enough on the Major League roster. So anyway, we're just going to keep simming ahead to the international free agent signings. Okay, so we're here at the international free agent signings. As you can see, we are 37 and 47, so I think this year is going to be not really very productive. We are 18 games out of first place, and in the wild card, we are 5 games out, but you can see how many teams are ahead of us. That's going to be really, really tough to catch the Astros. I don't know, it's not impossible, but I just don't really see a lot of hope at the end of the tunnel. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the international amateurs, see if there is anyone worth signing. It seems like only a 2.5 star potential rating is what we're looking at here. Though Jorge Martinez does not look too bad, to be honest. I don't think Medina is really going to be a catcher, given that catcher arm. Yeah, so I would say Martinez. I'll just offer him the $5 million. All right, so we were here at the All-Star game. You cannot make this up. Kevin Biggio has the same injury, fractured ulna. So, wow. All right, he is going to the DL. Him and Groshans, man. That's pretty impressive. Also worth noting, we did sign Martinez, so he is now in the international complex. We'll probably start playing next year. And then Nolan Arenado was the NL MVP in the All-Star games to the National League, beat out the American League 4-0. Let's see who we had on the All-Star team. So Chris Sale, Edwin Diaz, and then offensively we had Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and that was it. Just to give you a standings update, we are still 19 games out of first place, and in the wild card, we are 9 games out. So I think pretty much officially we are out of the race. We're going to be sellers at the deadline. We'll see what that really means. I mean, I like a lot of our team. We've got a lot of cost-controlled guys. We've got Luzardo, who's pitching really, really well. You know, we still have Sale. I guess he's a trade candidate, right? Diaz is another trade candidate. But, I mean, we're certainly not trading any of our core like Guerrero or Bichette or Groshans or anything like that. But certainly some of the older guys might be on their way out. Anyway, we will have to see. Okay, so this is going to be a deal that we do here. It's going to be Chris Sale for Josiah Gray. Sale, obviously, you know, still very good. His strikeout rates are declining this year, and we've got basically 1 to maybe 2 more years of team control after this. And I really like the looks of this Josiah Gray. He looks like an absolute stud, and he is in the bullpen right now, but he looks like he could be a starter, and that's what I would try to trot him out as a starting pitcher. They were going to do this deal for Yu, which I just think is a total ripoff. I don't know, Yu is decent, but he's not nearly as good as what Gray looks to be. And Gray is a very cost-controlled guy, so I think something like this makes sense. The Dodgers get their push to the postseason guy in Chris Sale, and we get kind of a cost-controlled future guy in Josiah Gray. Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to add to this deal a little bit, so I'm going to bring in Edwin Diaz into this deal. Now, again, I don't mind the contract that he has, but it is a number of years out into the future, and we're just not in a win-now mode, it seems, at least for this season. And in return, we would get a pretty good young catcher. Now, he has not really played above A ball, but if you just look at his contact avoid K ratings, good defense as well, it's someone who I would be excited about as a potential replacement for Reese McGuire, who, again, is going to start getting expensive pretty soon. You can see he's got 4 years of Major League service time already. So I think this is a deal that makes sense. There's a lot going on here, but I think we're going to get some good young talent back. It's going to be sad to give away Sale and Diaz. They've both been, very good, especially Sale for us. He's been good for a number of years. But I do think that this is in the best interest of the team. Okay, so here is the next trade we're going to do. We're going to be sending away Yu, and we are going to be getting Nick Storrs from the Yankees. So basically with Yu, what I'm thinking here is that I don't really know that I want to hold on to this contract. It's obviously 1 more year after this and then a team option with a $3.4 million buyout. However, he just has not really been as good this year. You can see that offense, falling. But in addition, I think the defense just isn't quite as good. His speed, maybe not quite as high. Obviously, he's someone who's been very valuable for us. But when I take a look at Nick Storrs, I kind of like what I see here. A ground ball pitcher, really good movement. So he's not going to give up many home runs. He's had pretty good strikeout rates this year in the minors. And I'd like to see what he can do. Very good stamina. Obviously, that control is going to be the major concern. He has been walking a lot of people, but I think this is someone who, has some potential. And he was a former first-round pick as well. Technically, he's a two-way player, although I don't think he's going to make anything for himself at first base. So anyway, we get Yu's money off the books. I just think overall this is going to be a decent deal for us. Okay, so the next move we're going to be making is trading away Kyle Hendricks to the Washington Nationals. In return, we're going to get this Christopher De La Cruz. I don't really know that he'll ever amount to anything, but he's got some intriguing ratings at the very least, and, we're only giving away half a season of Kyle Hendricks, so that's fine in my book. Okay, and the next trade we're just really doing a fire sale here. The next trade is going to be sending away Justin Turner. Again, I feel like he's got the potential to be quite good, but he's just been really bad for us. Although I guess when you take the defense into account or something, the WAR is pretty kind to him. And he is hitting a little bit better than he was earlier in the season. But anyway, in return, we get this nice cost-controlled relief pitcher in Ricky DeVito. He is really only ever going to be a relief pitcher because he doesn't have that third kind of dominant pitch. But I like some of his peripherals, at least this year in the major leagues. In the past, he's had trouble walking some guys, and I don't know. I mean, I like what I see, and I would definitely take a flyer on him. The OSA rating's not as high on him, so I'm not necessarily expecting a whole lot, but I mean, hey, I'll definitely do it for a half a season of Turner. Okay, and then the last trade, very quickly, Jose Alcala, who, is nothing, and we're getting Steven Souza Jr. just to fill up a roster spot in the outfield because we're a little bit thin, so we're just going to do this deal. Souza becomes a free agent at the end of the year. Okay, so anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I just thought it would be worth, trading some of the veteran guys that are still quite good for some younger guys who will be good or really better for our kind of longer term outlook. Anyway, disappointing year, but sometimes these things happen. And I'm really excited about Josiah Gray. I hope that he can turn into really something as a starting pitcher, but we will have to see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.